Hello, it's Ukraine on air and Marisa Tomaszewska with the Daily News. Russian troops continue to launch insidious missiles and bomb strikes in different regions of Ukraine. The General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces expects further shelling of the state's infrastructure with various kinds of weapons.
On the 21st of March, Zhytomyr region was shelled from Grad systems for the first time since the beginning of the war. 4 people were killed as a result of the attack against the village of Selets. The same morning, Odessa city in the south of Ukraine was shelled with shipboard artillery. The enemy's fire damaged several households. No injuries were reported. In the evening, 4 missile attacks from the air were recorded in the Rubizhne region. The armed forces of Ukraine shot down 3 of the missiles. Possible losses and destruction resulting from a strike of the 4th one are now specified.
Shelling intensifies in populated area in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions of eastern Ukraine. The town of Avdiivka is referred to as the second Volnovakha, as it has been continuously bombarded for the whole day.
According to Pavlo Kyrylenko, the head of Donetsk Regional Military Administration, the entire territory of Avdiivka was covered in smoke from the fires. Such a situation resulted from the Russian artillery and aviation attacks. 5 residents of Avdiivka were killed and 20 wounded. The State Emergency Service of Ukraine reports that Russian occupation troops continue shelling Rubizhne in Lugansk region. On the 21st of March, they hit a private building and a school, where people, including children, could be in the basements. The constant shelling makes it impossible for rescuers to get to the site. Besides, Russian troops once again shelled Severodonetsk, Lysychansk, Popasna and Kreminna. The number of casualties is not specified.
Volodymyr Zelenskyy had a frank interview with the public broadcasters of Ukraine, the Czech Republic and France. Foreign and domestic audiences received several essential messages about NATO, compromises in negotiations and the future of Ukraine.
President Volodymyr Zelenskyy stressed that Ukraine will not agree to comply with the ultimatums that Russia puts forward in the negotiations. He warned that all of the Kremlin's conditions for an end to a war could be met only after the entire Ukrainian nation is destroyed. The president also said that the final format of compromises on security guarantees and the temporarily occupied territories in the negotiations between Ukraine and Russia can be put to an all-Ukrainian referendum. These fundamental aspects will involve constitutional amendments and changes in Ukrainian law. That is why such critical issues must be decided upon by the Ukrainian people, highlighted Zelenskyy.
Women and elderly people were forced to leave the streets with the use of machine guns. This is what happened during a peaceful protest against the Russian troops in the city of Kherson.
Residents of Kherson have regularly held peaceful pro-Ukrainian rallies since Russian troops entered Kherson in early March. The demonstrations have attracted hundreds of people. During the 21st of March rally on Liberty Square, Russian occupants threw flashbang grenades and opened fire. According to preliminary reports, the Russian military shot at the pro-Ukrainian protesters. After that, explosions started over the city. The actions of the Russian military resulted in 3 people injured. Yuri Sobolevsky, the deputy head of the regional council, reported that at least 1 demonstrator was kidnapped.
A self-proclaimed acting mayor appeared in the city of Berdyansk, which had been temporarily seized by Russian troops. He announced his appointment in a video message. The prosecutor's office opened a criminal case against the collaborator.
The man, who introduced himself as Alexander Saulenko, stated that he was taking over the authority to govern Berdyansk because of the complete self-exclusion of the current authorities and unwillingness to cooperate with the civil-military administration. He reiterated all the points of Russian propaganda about the coup d'etat in Ukraine and the Kiev junta. "I am sure that together with the brotherly Russian people we will be able to establish a peaceful life," the man stated. The prosecutor's office has initiated criminal proceedings on the fact of collaborative activity.
The UN reported that the death toll among the civilians announced to 925 people.
The Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights recorded 2,421 civilian casualties in the country, 925 killed and 1,496 injured from February 24 to March 21. As of March 22, according to data of the Center for International Security, 25 civilians were killed during the past 24 hours as a result of the Russian invasion. 69 people were wounded, including 14 children, and 4 civilians were captured. According to official information, total of over 20 civilians were kidnapped or taken captive. The aforementioned statistics do not include casualties in Mariupol, Volnovakha, Izum, Severodonetsk, Rubizhne and Trostanets, as many reports are still pending corroboration due to intense hostilities there.
7 out of 8 agreed humanitarian corridors were operational on March 21st. A total of 8,057 people were rescued. Evacuation buses with children from Mariupol were shelled by artillery fire. Some children were seriously injured.
The head of regional administration of Zaporizhzhia, Alexander Starukh, informed that evacuation buses with children who were evacuating from Mariupol to a safe place came under artillery fire. 4 children were hospitalized. According to his statement yesterday, more than 20 buses were trying to leave for safe places through humanitarian corridors. But despite the agreement, the Russian armed forces continue shelling.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine informed that Russian forces abducted 2,389 Ukrainian children and took them to Russia.
According to information from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, on the 19th of March, the Russian armed forces abducted 2,389 children who were in the occupied districts of Donetsk and Lugansk regions and transferred them to the Russian territory. In response to that, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs urged the international community to immediately respond to the illegal deportation of children who are deprived from parental care and put in danger by such actions of Russia. Forced displacement of civilians into the territory of the other state, including children, looks very like abduction. Such actions are a gross violation of international law, in particular international humanitarian law.
The Russian armed forces continue to commit war crimes on the territory of Ukraine.
According to the Minister of Health, Viktor Lashko, attacks on medical institutions of Ukraine continue, violating numerous international conventions. 6 medics were killed and 16 were injured. 135 hospitals were shelled, 9 of which were destroyed. Also, 43 ambulances came under enemy fire.
The EU is considering an embargo on Russian oil in response to further Russian aggression against Ukraine. Against this background, oil prices jumped again at international markets on Monday.
The European Union is preparing a 5th package of sanctions against Russia over the war in Ukraine and is discussing the possibility of imposing an embargo on Russian oil. In particular, EU countries plan to discuss new sanctions, including an oil embargo, at a meeting of foreign ministers. It will take place on the 21st of March, ahead of US President Joe Biden's planned visit to Brussels on the 24th of March to attend a meeting of NATO allies and the G7 summit. The international oil market responded with an increase in oil prices. Oil prices jumped more than $3 on Monday, with Brent crude climbing above $111 a barrel.
The Free Ukraine Foundation, jointly with the Ukrainian Venture Capital and Private Equity Association, launched the program Support Ukrainian Startups Now, of targeted assistance to people whose professional employment needs help right now.
Support Ukrainian Startups Now program is a grant support program for the IT and startup companies of Ukraine. This includes not only financial assistance, but the help of additional specialists, consultants, technical support, as well as support for connections and additional contacts. In total, there are 285,000 IT specialists in Ukraine as of the end of 2021. 25% of IT specialists are women. The average age of employees is 27 for men and 25 for women. For startups to become a member of the Support Ukrainian Startups Now project, you can send an application in free form with a description of the project, team, stage and budget. More information about this program you can find in the YouTube video description.
The European Union countries lack consensus on further action to oppose Russian aggression in Ukraine. The idea of imposing sanctions on energy supplies from Russia was revived. However, some member states view this measure as a red line, and one of them is Hungary.
According to Hungarian media reports, Hungarian Foreign Minister Péter Szijjártó said that Budapest would not support sanctions against Russia, which could pose a threat to Hungary's energy supply. The Foreign Minister asked his European counterparts not to make proposals to limit or cut off energy supplies from Russia, as such a decision would lead to discord in Europe. This jeopardizes another package of sanctions by the EU aimed at significantly restricting Russian energy imports to Europe.
Millions of Ukrainians are now calling for the closing of the sky, and Ukraine's armed forces are doing their best to stop the Russian invasion of the country's territory. At the same time, Ukrainian diplomacy is succeeding to secure more support from allies to reach these goals.
Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal said that 13 countries had joined the signing of a joint statement on the urgent need to modernize the air defense of Ukraine. The statements refer to support for Ukraine's military and civil defense, humanitarian aid and protection of nuclear facilities. Furthermore, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Germany, Annalena Baerbock, said that the European Union will increase its financial aid for the supply of weapons to Ukraine up to 1 billion euros. Baerbock indicated that the government of her country will ensure that the German companies fulfill the orders in a short period of time. The details of the arms supply were not disclosed.
Russian war crimes against Ukraine caused revolt in the world community. A growing number of leaders believe that Russia must bear greater responsibility for its atrocities.
Josep Borrel, the head of EU diplomacy, is convinced that Russia is committing war crimes in Ukraine. He called the events in Mariupol a huge war crime, something terrible that should be strongly condemned. Borrell said that the EU was ready to discuss sanctions against Russia in the energy sector. Meanwhile, 6 European countries have already launched investigations into Russian war crimes in Ukraine. This number includes Estonia, Lithuania, Germany, Poland, Slovakia and Sweden. This was reported by the Prosecutor General of Ukraine, Irina Venediktova. Ukraine cooperates with these states in order to speed up the exchange of information and evidence.
Germany expects 8 million Ukrainian refugees in the European Union. This was stated by German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock on the margins of the meeting of the European Union foreign ministers in Brussels.
Annalena Baerbock states as follows: I think we should be very aware that more than 3 million people have already fled, but many millions more will flee. According to her estimates, the EU should accept about 8 million Ukrainian refugees. Only 2 weeks ago, EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs Josep Borrel said that 5 million refugees from Ukraine are expected. According to the UN, 10 million people have fled their homes in Ukraine because of Russia's destructive war, either at home or as refugees abroad.
Stand with Free Ukraine and subscribe for our channel.